There's a lot of hype around AI agents and also many clear realities on how it's changing our world. Today, I'm going to be covering the realities, how vibe coding is changing how we deliver innovations, what happens when we have to manage AI agents that reach production, and rethinking operational KPIs now that we are partnering with AI agents. Hi, my name is Isaac Sokolic. Welcome to the Driving Digital Stand-Up. And let's just jump in. How is vibe coding changing the way we deliver innovations in our organizations? Let's talk about AI coding competencies, starting with code generators, and then I'm going to cover vibe coding and spec-driven development. Huge market from Gartner, over $3 billion just in 2025. 84% of developers are using some kind of code generation or plan to. And this was the best study that I see, 3.6 hours per week saved by developers using these tools. So even though we're getting into 30, 50, 75% of code being generated by AI, it's still only taking out about 3.6 hours of a developer's time. And that's because developers are spending a lot more time than just coding. It's also introducing some risks, 1.4 times more critical PR issues coming from PRs that are generated from code that's AI generated, issues from password handling, insecure object reference, so really basic stuff. So you're not going to just get a coding platform to generate code without some kind of QA and testing and validation that comes after it. Now, when we get into vibe coding and spec-driven development, 92% of US developers are using these, and most of the Fortune 500 have at least one vibe coding platform. It's impacting more senior developers who are able to use these platforms, while our more junior developers are still trying to figure out, how do I interpret this code and what should I do with it? And if you look at some of the activities people are doing with them, these activities are just dealing with some of the basic starting points of an application and building the business logic out. I haven't seen anybody that's told me, hey, I built an entire end-to-end application with vibe coding and haven't had to make any tweaks to it other than just for prototyping. Now, when you start going from prototyping to production, what you start realizing is you have to start giving a vibe coding platform a lot more direction in terms of requirements. How is this thing supposed to behave? What are the non-functional requirements? And so spec-driven development is trying to address this. Instead of jumping right in from prompt to code, what it's doing is allowing you to prompt to create requirements. Kiro from AWS actually creates 3 different types of documents prior to being able to use it for generating code. And it uses those specs to be able to generate the code from them. So a lot of things happening in the world of generating code. This is all coming from a recent Coffee with Digital Trailblazers that I hosted on AI coding competencies, hype, realities, and the future. And I have some quotes in here from some of the blogs of our special speakers. My friend David Bachman told us a story around the hours it took him to build an application, to write a spec for a vibe coding platform, and then the 10,000 lines of code it generated. Dave Cassell, very much interested in not just the productivity gains, but how do you get quality out of your development processes. And then have a look at my blog post, 5 ways that you can be awed by coding competencies, 5 ways that it's going to blow up in your face. You can get those links at starcio.com/coffee/episode-169. You can get access to this slide and all the links, so you can read more about what's here and check out the research, and then read about what Bachman concludes, that AGI is impossible based on how we're defining it. So a lot of things that we can do in terms of realities: generate code. The realities, you have to test it, you have to develop really good requirements for it, a broader spectrum around creating specs before we develop, and then our professors telling us that AGI, as we're defining it, is impossible. Go read his blog post to learn more. So we had a huge debate at the Coffee with Digital Trailblazers on what it means to manage AI agents once they're in production. What are the skills to manage them? What are the operating models? What are the tools around this? I'm going to give you a current state picture and a future state picture. Let's start with Deloitte. giving us the data that 74% will deploy agentic AI within the next 2 years. Some believe that this won't create a lot of process change. 37% are saying that. Some are saying that this is going to redesign everything from the ground up. That's 30%. But the reality is 84% have not designed jobs around AI just yet. And 85% expect to customize AI agents, but only 21% have a mature governance model to do so. So we're still in a very early stage work in progress in many enterprises in terms of how we're rolling this out. Now, if you want to see where this is going, the KPMG AI Quarterly Pulse, this is coming from the end of last year, 44% of leaders expect AI agents to take lead roles on specific projects in the next 2 to 3 years. So we're seeing where we are today is still pretty early on, but there are some advanced thinking that we're not just going to be partnering with AI agents, giving capabilities for AI agents to automate and do on their own, but they're actually going to lead us at some point. And so we're really going to need to think through what the guardrails are. You're seeing some of the best advice here coming from the World Economic Forum. Treat their onboarding with the same rigor as a new employee. That's particularly important in terms of what information they get access to. You have to think through what the performance objective is going to look like for them. So are they going to be the same as people or different performance objectives for an AI agent? I think that's still very early on in terms of how we gauge this. And there are those who think that we're going to actually manage AI agents very differently than we are with humans. And that's my expectations, right? AI agents, we're going to have a certain level of comfort factor and belief in terms of what they can do from an automation perspective, but we're very much going to be designing AI agents to be partnering with people and enabling their creativity, advancing decision-making capabilities, and that's where I think AI agents are going to lead us in terms of how our operations are going to change. Now let's go look at this in terms of what this is going to do to our operating KPIs and models. I've been sharing you all this from recent episodes of the Coffee with Digital Trailblazers. You can get access to the recording of the ones I've shared and others. You can join future ones, and you can see some of the whiteboards that we create around this at this URL, drive.startcio.com/coffee. We meet every week on Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on LinkedIn. And on that page, there's an add to calendar button. So you can put it on your calendar. It'll have a URL that you can go to anytime on Fridays or even afterward to watch a previous episode. So one more episode of the Coffee with Digital Trailblazers. We covered rethinking KPIs for the AI era. Our two basic strategies: think short term and what those KPIs should look like, and then have a different set of longer term KPIs. So let me break this down for you. In terms of short term, a bunch of different ways to think about adoption and activation. We think about use case coverage, a number of processes achieving a goal, and the number of activations around it. I think about end user adoption and then the training around that. So very big part of rolling out AI agents is the change management process and the overall adoption of this technology. Now, when I think about instituting AI agents in a workflow, I think at least one measure around efficiency and at least another measure around accuracy. And then what you're seeing here, this innovation pipeline metric, this comes from one of Star CIO's digital trailblazer workshops in our Center of Excellence programs. We help organizations define pipeline health around innovation, and it's not uniform. You can see some of the variables that we work with organizations to help define, and it changes over time. So sometimes you want a lot of ideas and it's going to be a lot bigger, and sometimes you really want to focus on actually getting value out of pilots, and your innovation pipeline is going to have a different set of metrics around this. Obviously, you're not going to change this every day, but you're going to think through what is this organization trying to do with innovation, particularly around AI, and you're going to set a KPI using a formula like this. Now let's move on. Let's think about longer term KPIs. I have an article around this around digital KPIs that are focused on outcomes and velocity KPIs, things like time to data, decision to market. This was published in CIO.com. And then I took that article, I used it as one of the lessons in my LinkedIn Learning course. It's called Digital Transformation for Leaders in the AI Era. You can see the URL to it. This will redirect you to it, starcio.com/AI-transformation. And you can see my longer term KPIs are in layers. I first want to set principles, right? Defining value based on language that people can understand. I'm going to have a portfolio of initiatives. So I'm going to understand how to roll up KPIs and OKRs from individual initiatives up to a portfolio. Then there's a lot of organizational level metrics, things like customer satisfaction or time to resolve an issue, where you can't necessarily be highly prescriptive connecting operations or innovations to the actual organizational metrics. And then we're obviously going to be looking at the overall health of our business model. Are we generating revenue? How our different sales channels are performing and things like that. So these are the long-term metrics, and you need to think about how you're going to apply them to AI, right? And so there might be some dimensions around AI specifically, but more broadly, how is your organization performing with this opportunity and challenges that AI brings to you? So 3 takeaways. First, even though we're getting a lot of AI coding competencies, we still have to invest in our full software development lifecycle, particularly around requirements up front. And that's where spec-driven development is taking us, and then our ability to test what a vibe coding platform or other code generating platform generates. So we're not getting applications into production for free. Second thing is we're going to need to really think about how to ensure people are truly responsible for the AI agents and their behavior and their capabilities. And that means we're always going to have some form of human in the middle, right? AI agents can't just be given complete autonomy, and our tools and our practices around this are still areas of maturity. Lastly, I want you to think about so much write up around fewer AI capabilities, making it out of POC and pilot into production. Think through what your short-term KPIs are, particularly around innovation, and develop longer-term KPIs, starting with principles, how your portfolio needs to be managed in terms of initiatives, how your organization's changing, and then how your business model is changing. So thank you for joining this week's episode of the Driving Digital Standup. Remember the URL, drive.starcio.com/coffee. That will get you access to previous episodes. You can go watch them on demand. You can get access to dashboards that we've created during the sessions, and then you can add it to your calendar. So 3 different things that you can do at this URL. And then what I hope you will do is join our digital Trailblazer community that is available at drive.starcio.com/join. You get a lot of benefits by being part of the entire digital Trailblazer community. Thank you for being a part of the Driving Digital Stand-Up this week, and I'll see you at the next episode.